showman. He's doing this for publicity and headlines or whatever. LA's not burning, despite what Fox tells you and all these kinds of things. You will see more of that in the coming days, I guarantee you.
Yeah, if it bleeds, it leads. You know, in the news, that's the news service for many people. So,
and I think the news service has a vested interest in trying to create a counter narrative to the Trump got elected to deport illegals, and they're trying to say, well, not everybody's in agreement with that, when a large percentage of the American people are in agreement with it, including legal immigrants to our country.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's right.
I watched a debate 2 nights ago. There's a vacancy in Arizona where a Democratic congressman passed away back in March. They're having a primary for both Republicans and Democrats. And so on Monday night, they had the primary between 3 Republicans running for this Democrat's seat. And then last night, they had 5 Democrats in their primary.
You said they had a primary. Did they have a debate?
Well, they're having a primary debate.
Oh,
the primary debate. Excuse me. Anyway, the 3 Republicans are all in agreement that what Trump is doing is right here. And then last night, the Democrats were like, Trump is terrible. He's a dictator. So that issue is it was the first question in both debates in Arizona. Hey, what do you think about what's going on in LA, which is far away from their district too? So it is a national issue, not only something we're talking about on this show, but even in elections far away from the scene.
Yeah.
I've had all my questions answered.
Have you now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, have you shared your heart enough?
I've shared some of it. There's more in there, Tim.
Okay.
You don't want to
save it. We don't want you to share your whole heart right now. There'll be time enough for that.
Yes. Make sure the whole world can see what goes on.
Time enough for counting dead when the dealing's done. You sing the rest of that?
Not really.
Or leave it to Kenny Rogers?
I didn't even. Which Kenny? The normal face or the?
Oh man, see, I didn't want to get into body shaming. You started that. You're talking about Kenny Rogers, the late Kenny Rogers. Guy's passed away.
Oh man.
Talking about.
You got to know. You got to know when to let your face just be your face.
You got to know when to close out the hour.
You got to know when to mow times and know when to not mow ducks.
I'll be back in 5 minutes. Or worse.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas.
Pulled out all the stops to try to destroy the family for a very long time. That's why the American Family Association stands boldly in the gap to protect and strengthen this God-breathed institution. Visit AFA.net today and discover the resources available for you and your family. And if you would, please take a minute to show your support. That's AFA.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. California Governor Gavin Newsom is blaming President Trump for the riots in Los Angeles after a judge rejected Newsom's motion to block the Marines and National Guard from deploying.
This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes.
But the president says the federal troops are helping save the city.
Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave a little additional help, Los Angeles would be burning right now.
Attorney General Pam Bondi says the California governor seems to be clueless.
It's evidently Gavin Newsom has not been out to the scene. He has not turned on the television set to see the incredible amount of violence that is happening in Los Angeles. President Trump is going to make America safe again. We're going to protect Americans, and that includes Californians. If Gavin Newsom isn't going to protect them, we are.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass made this false statement about troop deployments.
I think that's a problem with the administration, because to come in such a massive way and to make the announcements that all of this was going to happen and then not communicated with the local jurisdiction as to when, what, how, why, is really problematic.
But the problem is, that's a lie. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons says ICE notified local authorities 48 hours in advance. This is Assistant DHS Secretary Tricia McLaughlin.
She's absolutely being dishonest. Todd Lyons is right. We had the receipts to prove it. We notified local LAPD that these ICE operations were occurring at least 48 hours in advance. And the American people should know some of the individuals that we picked up on these ICE operations. Child rapists, child molesters, murderers, convicted arsonists, truly the worst of the worst on the streets. But my message to Mayor Bass and to Governor Newsom and these rioters that they back is that ICE will not be deterred. We will not be intimidated by this rioter violence. We will keep going. We will only ramp up ICE operations, and we will continue to get these criminals off of our streets.
Immigration enforcement has arrested an illegal alien with a criminal record for throwing a Molotov cocktail at police in Los Angeles.
Homeland Security officials say Emiliano Garduno Galvez has been arrested for attempted murder after they say he threw a Molotov cocktail at police June 7th in Los Angeles. Galvez had been deported before and has a prior for grand theft in Anaheim, as well as a DUI in Long Beach. Hundreds of people have been arrested in connection with the LA riots, and at least 5 officers have been injured. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
And finally, a private university is hosting a, quote, queer flourishing event this week. More from Bronson Woodruff.
The event this week was set up by the LGBT alumni chapter at Fordham University in New York. It's a private Jesuit institution. Campus Reform reports the event has 2 professors to help guests who feel at risk or under threat due to the steps the Trump administration has taken since the beginning of this year. Part of the event's description says, quote, some LGBT plus New Yorkers are renewing their passports and checking out escape routes to other countries, fearing their marriages will be revoked or their children taken away from them or other travesties. Some have already left, end quote. Zachary Marshall, PhD, is editor-in-chief of Campus Reform. He said, in effect, he thinks it's sad that Fordham is supporting the notion that a person gets value from identity rather than merit or character.
Queer flourishing, I think, is a way to make everything about being queer for people who have nothing else going on. From what I understand, the idea of flourishing is connected to the human endeavor to try your hardest and be fully rounded people who are successful in life, however we measure success. I don't see how sexuality has anything to do with that.
Fordham's website describes this as a conversation that will be a, quote, proud evening of deeper dialogue and socializing. Marshall said it's concerning to him that Fordham's not teaching students how to flourish as human beings by virtue of their humanity. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Keene.
The political climate in America has changed. We've been given a reprieve, and we have to work together to take advantage of that momentum and effect even more cultural and spiritual change. We can rebuild America. The American Family Association is working to do just that, and when you join with your support, it helps maximize the impact. As our thanks, we'll give you a DVD of biblical financial advice from Rob West called Biblical Stewardship. Please visit afa.net and get started today.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Welcome back to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Fred, and now Steve Paisley Jordan joins us. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody. This is a sign for Ed. He's not looking at me, but that's okay. It's for later.
Okay. That's true.
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing?
We're doing good.
Good.
Doing good. We're riot free.
Riot free
here in the studio.
But I'll tell you what,
We still have half an hour to make that.
Leadership tried to take that popcorn machine away. We might have riots.
Then I'll call out the Marines. I have to. Nobody's getting my popcorn machine right there.
That's right.
Our popcorn machine. It's shared.
It is.
We take a communal view here of the popcorn machine. Just don't get the last of it if I'm coming for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. and I think they know that. The staff knows that by now.
Do they?
Yeah. If you're going to take the last before today's issue,
right? Yeah. Don't.
Somebody
do that.
better make some more.
Don't do that.
I think it was like me and my wife. We have an agreement with my wife. It's like what's mine is yours, and what's yours is yours.
Yes.
So.
All right, Fred. Do you want to say anything about what we talked about? We've muted you the last 30 minutes.
No, I was listening to Abe's expertise in the law, and it's really important right now because, as we mentioned, Newsom has gone to court. He believes that Trump had no legal right to call out the National Guard. Abe says he has every right to call out the National Guard. But there is the case about the Marines, and I understand, from Abe and from my understanding of the law, that is going to be the question point. Now, I still am not clear. I do not believe the Marines have arrived on the streets where these protests.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, they have. They've been in a holding area. Actually, they talked about they're training the Marines on how to do the crowd control and whatever they may be required to do at this holding area. So until the Marines arrive on site, I don't think Newsom has a case against the Marines. They haven't done anything yet.
I heard the discussion, and Abe was, as all of you all know, was saying that they can go in a support role. Didn't we send Army or Marines or some military down to the southern border at some point to relieve ICE of the administrative function down there so that they could go after more criminals?
There were members of the Army who went down to help out in building detention centers.
That would be the support role that Abe was talking about. That
Yes.
would be illegal use.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's more debatable there because you're talking about the use of the military to prevent a foreign invasion, you could argue.
Mm-hmm.
Especially during Biden's time. There was people pouring in by the millions, right? I mean,
Yes.
15 million people came in because Biden said, y'all come from around the world. But anyway, using the Marine Corps here is a bad idea, in my opinion. And you could do the same thing with the more National Guard troops. Yeah, you could do the same thing. State police, whatever the case may be. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully it quails and goes away and dies down. There's a curfew now. There wasn't one. There's a curfew now in order by the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. That should be helpful.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens over the weekend. Notice that we don't have a lot of rioting in America in January. Have you guys noticed this?
Yes.
Now Jesse Smollett, he ran into problems.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you know what? He was kind of asking for it, being in MAGA country.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah, downtown Chicago.
In January, Chicago, in the middle of the night.
You're gonna run into some MAGA fanatics.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah.
You're gonna run into some red-headed MAGA folks in downtown Chicago. Waiting for some poor soul to come out of Subway.
You meant red-hatted.
What did I say?
Red-headed.
Oh yeah, red-hatted. Yeah. Thank you for correcting me there.
What's even more stark is you can count the number of riots on zero hands that were during the Biden administration. They don't come out, and like Code Pink completely went away after George Bush left office. You didn't hear about it. Now the issues didn't change, but they won't.
Well, and Barack Obama deported a lot of illegal immigrants.
More than Trump in some cases.
There were not protests, wall to wall.
No.
For that.
It's not about deporting immigration.
You're right. It's about
destabilizing
47.
Yeah. It's about 47, 45/47.
Yep.
Next story.
So the Southern Baptists are meeting in Dallas for their annual meeting. They're having a convention, the Southern Baptist Convention. But on Sunday, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission convened a roundtable, and they invited Oklahoma Senator James Lankford to be a part of this roundtable. And this was right before, on Monday was the pastors' conference. So this was a bunch of pastors mostly gathered in this room. And this is what, I want to read you what James Lankford said as reported by the Christian Post. I've been promised a copy copy of the video, but it won't be ready for a day or two. So this is what Langford, this is the Christian Post. Langford sees the push for pastors to talk more about politics from the pulpit as a system of the current American political climate rather than a biblical call. Quote, I've talked to so many pastors who say that they're struggling in their church because they are attacking them, because people are attacking them, saying, quote, I want you to talk more about politics, he said. They want more anger. They want you to go after people. He shared a story from a couple years ago when someone told Langford that, quote, no Democrat would feel comfortable in his church. Langford added, I think he expected me to laugh. Instead, I said to him, you're telling me half of your city can't come and hear the gospel in your church? Why are you doing that? The anger of our culture is bleeding into our congregation, and it's counter to the gospel. And then calling Titus 3 the description of how to be able to impact the culture, Langford added, it is completely counter to how it's done in most places, even among the church right now, and I'm afraid the church is getting drawn into the Fox News anger culture rather than getting drawn into the leadership of the Holy Spirit. 1, 2, 3, go.
Well, this got sent around yesterday, and I get upset by this kind of talk. First of all, James Langford is a Christian, my understanding. He's a Christian, so he's a brother in the Lord. Yep. And so this is just a disagreement I have with a Christian brother. Okay, first, let me just say, I don't ever hear this kind of talk when you're in a church that leans left and the discussion is about racism, okay, or questions about equity or illegal immigration. Okay, nobody says don't talk about that from the pulpit, because you're just falling into the CNN anger echo chamber. Okay, nobody says that when the issue is something on the left. Second of all, let me just say, Senator Langford is correct that Christians ought to be in control of their emotions. Sinful emotions like anger and hatred and or sinful anger, I should say, not all anger is sinful. Bitterness, all those kinds of things, malice, name calling, all of that is sinful conduct. And so pastors ought to be able to preach on issues that are in the news, that touch the Bible in terms of worldview and biblical teaching, and instruct the people to handle those disagreements in a Christian way. And let me just finally say, and we others can certainly chime in here, we only hear people like what Senator Langford said. We only hear people talk about this when the issue is something like abortion or homosexuality. If a pastor preaches on adultery and that makes adulterers in the congregation feel awkward, nobody tells them to stop preaching about it. Okay? Part of awkwardness, quote unquote, may be conviction. And if people feel convicted, you're not helping them by no longer preaching on what the Holy Spirit wants you to preach on just because they feel uneasy about the subject matter. So that's my well-reasoned, not calm, not angry answer to Senator Langford with all due respect.
Fred, you had some thoughts when you read this.
Well, I think down through history, let's go back to the start of the church. Was Peter concerned that when he spoke to the Jews of his day that Jesus was the Christ, that made some Jews very angry?
He said, Jesus Christ, whom you crucified.
Whom you crucified. So should Peter have stepped back and be concerned about, I might offend some people by saying that? Look, I don't think you should stand at the door of a church and say, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? Right. No. But at the same time, a pastor ought not to shy away from preaching about the sin of abortion, about homosexuality, dealing with transgenderism, because I might offend somebody. You cannot do that. And if you do that, then you're you're saying that the power of the gospel is in me. No, the power of the gospel, they're not mutually exclusive. You can talk about abortion in your message and the sin of abortion, but present the gospel.
Yeah. In fact, they quite go together. I mean,
they do.
Forgiving God and forgiveness brings us.
The moment you say, I cannot talk about that sin because I might offend the political views of somebody, I mean, you're excluding the Holy Spirit.
And you are letting politics enter the church, because politics is now chilling the pastor's speech.
Mm-hmm.
Paul was buying into the Caesar tonight anger of the echo chamber. Caesar.
Oh, Caesar